Welcome everyone to week number 8, our final week together in Science 200. Then you'll be moving on to your next term, as will I, or you may be graduating, and if you are, congratulations. That's an awesome thing to do and an awesome accomplishment. So anyway, let's see what we've got going on this week. So you just finished up your speaker's notes. And so you should have your presentation at least already outlined, which is awesome. And then you're going to add the speaker's notes to them. So we will get to that. I wanted to include here some interesting things that you guys discovered in your research. This is from the discussion boards in week 6 because that was really interesting. I loved reading what you had learned about your topics. For those of you who did the GMOs, you found out that there may be health risk associated with consuming GMOs, but they have not been discovered so far. Electric vehicles aren't quite as environmentally friendly as everybody thinks because there are issues with the lithium mining to make the batteries. There are problems with battery disposal. There are issues with where your electricity comes from in order to run your vehicle. So if your electric plant is powered by the burning of coal, that sort of cancels out the benefit of having an electric vehicle. So anyway, there are all kinds of things that you learned about electric vehicles. Biodiversity conservation, we had some interesting topics with that, from land recycling to, what else do we have? There's a lot of biodiversity conservation having to do with marine environments and that sort of thing. Ocean acidification, there were several of you who chose this, so you learned about the pH of the ocean being lowered over time because of the burning of fossil fuels, and how this mainly affects marine species, including, a lot of you chose those species that make up the human food supply. And since the human population is increasing at an ever-expanding rate, it's estimated that in 2050 we will have 9 billion people on the planet, and we've just reached 8 billion a few years ago. So that is crazy, isn't it? So anyway, we're going to have to be concerned about our food supply, and we need to stop lowering the pH of the ocean and killing off species that we need. Yeah. Genetic engineering, there are lots of ethical issues that surround genetic engineering. And there are lots of ethical choices already. Someone did IVF and genetic engineering and choosing genders and that sort of thing after you do IVF. So there are all kinds of ethical issues. Who is going to be able to select what kinds of traits in their offspring when we do genetic engineering? Will it only be used to fix disease genes or to remove disease genes or take out unwanted characteristics? And who decides that? Yeah, so that's going to be interesting in the future. It already is interesting, but we'll see what happens with that. So there are lots of interesting things that we learned about these topics that you covered. All right, this week you've got discussion board posts in this last week. Your initial post will involve you describing to us how you adapted your presentation to your particular audience. So how was it that you chose to communicate your subject to your audience in order to get your point across? And did you have any problems with that? Did you have any issues with that? Your response posts are comparing what challenges you had to what your fellow classmates had. Did you have the same challenges? Did you have something totally different because you had totally different audiences? So discuss those. Remember, initial post is due by, whoa, there goes my camera light. Sorry. Your initial post is due by Thursday night. Your 2 response posts are due by Sunday night. Complete the exercises in Chapter 8 in your Sumo web text, the final one on the Deepwater Horizon oil spill. And I thought that it was very interesting that the approach that this team took when they were writing this article. I'm going to sneeze. Sorry. Here. Bless me. Okay. So the approach that they took was they were communicating to the public about what happened in the aftermath of the oil spill. And they took the tactic of asking a question and then answering the question. And these would be questions that the general public would have. So I thought that was a really great approach because anybody can understand that. It just makes sense. So that was kind of cool. And then you're making your final presentation between 5 to 7 slides. You can include an introductory like title slide. That's not included in the 5 to 7. And your references can be extra slides. So 5 to 7 full of information, well, impactful slides, right? That have to do with your topic. 5 to 7 slides. There's lots of ways to make the slides, from PowerPoint to Prezi to Canva to Google Slides to who knows what else. I don't know. PDF. You can make them through PDF. So anyway, you need to make your slides like you were going to make a presentation to the audience that you chose. Include graphics, include data, include tables, include diagrams, etc., etc., etc. You've got to give visual impact to your slides in order to reach your audience. If you just type out everything that you're going to say, i.e. your speaker's notes on these slides, your audience is going to go to sleep within the first slide. And how do I know that? Because I have seen them. Now, and then you look at my slide and you go, Dr. Sigmon, you have an awful lot of words on there. I do, but I'm talking to you. And I put these slides on here so you can stop this presentation anytime you want and look, ooh, what's that exactly she said about that? Yeah. So anyway, yeah, I have a lot of words on my slides for right now in order to teach you. So graphics, data, bullet points. Yes, you can put some words on your slides. I'm not saying you don't put words, but like an outline, right? And people like outlines because they can see where you're going from here and they can think about that as you're talking. So that's kind of cool. So put an outline, put a few bullet points. It's fine. Put your speaker's notes at the bottom of the slide if you possibly can. Otherwise, attach it as, upload it as a separate document. I would prefer it in the speaker's notes section because then I can see everything right there on one screen instead of having to bop back and forth between all different applications open on my computer. So that's what I would prefer, but sometimes you can't do that depending on your application. All right. A couple of little housekeeping things. Okay, I'm going to move my face over for a second. Take the time, please, to do course evaluations because this helps me become a better teacher. It helps my team lead know how I'm doing, and it helps my dean know that I'm a good instructor. Hopefully that's what you're going to say. And everything has to be turned in before midnight on Sunday, October 27th. Please be aware of that deadline. Do not send me a message on the morning of the 28th saying you didn't have a chance to get something uploaded. I can't do anything about it. The computer just shuts down the courses. So get your work in. If we need to ask for an incomplete, and I explained that in last week's video, then contact me as soon as possible. We have to do that before the end of the term. You cannot do that afterward. That's like saying, oh, can I have a little bit extra time? And the course is completely shut down. It doesn't work like that. So let me know ahead of time. If you have any issues this week, please let me know right away. Right away. Because I need to know that right away so that we can get anything worked out that we need to before the end of the term. I wish you all the best. There's my email address, m.sigmon@snhu.edu. But one thing I wanted to do, you know that little word back there that's been behind me the whole time? I wanted to tell you the little story behind that. So my sister and I went to Scotland in May of 2023. And the last day of the main part of the tour, we stayed a couple of days extra, but the last day we went on a canoe trip down the River Bewley in Scotland. Oh, such a beautiful setting. Now, lest you think it was rapids, no, it's a Category 1 stream river, okay? No rapids. So anyway, my sister and I, we went together on our nature tour, and we had practiced canoeing before we went. We were terrible to start with, but we got better, and we were doing fine. We were doing fine when we started out canoeing in the River Bewley. And two of the guys had not really wanted to go, Jim and Dave, and they were in the canoe up ahead of us. Well, somehow, we don't know what they did. Somehow, the one in the back fell out the back. And that dipped the front down, and that got the guy in the front, his feet wet. So the guy in the back was standing up in waist deep water. Well, my sister, this was a more rapidly moving part of the river, and it was over toward the bank. We were headed that way. And we weren't paying attention to what they were doing. We just thought they were moving. And all of a sudden, our tour guide says, "Girls, turn." Well, I was the one steering. I got us turned. We were absolutely perpendicular to them, moving out into the middle of the river. And all of a sudden, we hit an underwater tree branch. Oh, yes, we did. Our canoe did. And it flipped us right over. Yes, we capsized our canoe. I had a camera around my neck. My sister had a camera around her neck. Both had our phones in our pockets. We were drenched. We both popped up, and as soon as we popped up, we started laughing. Only would we capsize a canoe in a Category 1 river. We were dying laughing because it happened to us. Now, it wasn't our fault because we were trying to avoid the roadblock ahead of us. And the two guys who had, we don't even know what they did to get dumped out of their canoe. So, the second tour guide came over to us, and they helped us flip our canoe over, and it was absolutely full of water. And they took our cameras and our dry bags and our phones, and they flipped our canoe over, and they put us back in the canoe, and we tied up to the first tour guide and the two guys. And he was taking, well, before that happened, he took them to the other shore, and he came back and got us because we were still trying to sort everything out. So he came back and got us. Well, we didn't have any oars, and we started looking around. Well, how are we going to paddle? And he said, "Well, don't you two girls want to go get out on the bank like the guys did and go on back and get dried out and dried off?" And my sister and I both looked and went, "No, we are going to canoe the rest of the way." Now, we are absolutely drenched, and the water is 42 degrees Fahrenheit. It is freezing cold, and we were freezing cold. And he looked at us like we were crazy. We canoed for another 3.5 hours and went the whole course of the River Bewley all the way to where we got out. Man, when we pulled up in between two canoes and I put it right in there perfectly, we had become experts. So anyway, we got out and we were walking up the hill. My sister was in front of me, and the second tour guide was an older man, and he looked over at me and he said one word. He said, "Respect." And that got to me. I can't straighten myself back out. So he told us respect because, you know, no matter what happened, we got back in the canoe and canoed for another 3.5 hours, despite the fact that we're freezing cold and soaking wet. And the big tough guys, they got out on shore and went back to one of the houses and dried out. And here we fought our way through the rest of the trip because we really wanted to experience everything. And so that made an impact on me, that he said that. And I said, yeah, I got respect for myself for doing that, because it was super hard and physically exhausting. You know, I'm not used to canoeing, though we had practice. So I had respect for myself after that. So I got me and my sister that sign for us. So stick to it is the point of the story. Have some stick-to-itiveness. And no matter what comes your way, and no matter how hard it is to finish your education, get your education. Some people will say, well, it's going to take me 5 years. Okay. At the end of 5 years, you're still going to be 5 years older. Whether you choose to party every weekend or spend some of your time and money on your education and do better for yourself. So, you have the same amount of time no matter what. You're just figuring out how to spend your time in order to get the best quality of life that you can. So that is my lesson for today. Got a little weepy in the middle, but that's all right. Respect back there. All right, let me know if you need anything. I hope that you have a wonderful week this week. And I wish you all the best. Keep in touch, too. I love hearing from my students, okay? All right, have a great week.